Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our chats with Emily, as we're calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are using the Johnson edition. We are now in poem 269, Bound a Trouble. Now, the word trouble will be the central word of this poem, and in many ways we are back to the theodicy question one more time, how to deal with trouble and suffering. Our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at LearnStrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful as well that you've worked through our set of introductory comments where we introduce the big five, as we call them in 303. The first of those, epistemology, what you can know, ontology, who you are, psychology, the study of the individual mind, sociology, the study of the group mind, and then finally that last is that word I just used, theodicy, the question of why must there be pain and suffering in the world. Now, if you'll think about it, we've already worked through the preceding 268 poems. We just finished with 268, Me, Change, Me, Alter. If you'll think about it, even in 268, 267, that defiance, that Promethean defiance that we're talking about, standing behind that, of course, is the pain that is associated with somehow an individual in one's life, in Emily's life, that's not quite attached to her, and it frustrates her in some way. What is the source of the pain or the suffering or the trouble? We're not exactly sure of. But notice the mathematics language of this poem. The referencing to math, algebra will only be referenced one other poem, poem 600. And as well, notice the question about enduring pain. It won't go away. She'll say it this way, and it's fascinating the way she plays the game. What is the way to deal with pain and suffering? Trouble is her word. Bound to trouble, and lives can bear it. Limit how deep a bleeding go. So many drops of vital scarlet deal with the soul, as with algebra. Tell it to the ages, to a cipher, and it will ache contented on. Sing at its pain, as any workman notching the fall of the even sun. Now, this is an interesting poem in the regards to how to deal with pain, how to deal with suffering. There are different ways to do it. By the way, the word bound here, used as a verb, means to set boundaries or to limit. It's kind of an arcane use of the word. In other words, limit or set parameters around a trouble, and lives can bear it. In other words, I can put up with something if I have a sense of how long it's going to last. Limit how deep a bleeding go. So many drops. By the way, do you see that use of the hyphen? So it's literally like blood dropping. So many drops of vital scarlet deal with the soul as with algebra. In other words, the ability to kind of compute, how long am I going to have to put up with this? I can do that. That's one way to deal with pain and suffering. Another is tell it the ages, of course the trouble here is the antecedent pronoun in, to a cipher. Now we're back to math language again. And it will ache contented on. I can put up with it forever as long as I know there's a possibility of an end in sight. Sing, now all of a sudden we have a different orientation to sorrow, to trouble, to pain. Sing at its pain as any workman, notching the fall of the even sun. In other words, it's hard to work all day and yet one can do it, because one sees the sun going down, and the workman will then go home singing. I think this is an interesting little poem because it gives us a little bit of a glance into the way that Emily has to deal with the trouble, the pain of her life. The best way to deal with pain is what? Either bear up. We immediately think of Hamlet's famous speech in Act 3, to be or not to be, that is the question, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or take arms against the sea of troubles and by opposing in them. Here for her it's bear up versus singing, right? That is to say, as we commented very early on, Emily seems to struggle with the theodicy question, but occasionally she'll come to this insight to learn no longer to ask when bad things happen, why did it happen to me, but rather why did it happen for me. Pain, if you will, is propedeutic, instructional in some way. At 2b, the math language here is fascinating. You might call it the calculus of pain. I find it interesting the way she does that. At 3a, some scholars have pointed out that it's possible that Emily's being influenced here by Wordsworth's The Solitary Reaper. You'll remember in that poem, there's a line that the maiden sings a melancholy strain to sing away one's pain. Finally, in 3B, how do you deal with pain and suffering and trouble, and to what degree are you capable of singing it away? Maybe Emily is helping with that. I hope so. Thank you.